News and Events COVID-19 on May 31. Note, this is a collaborative video made between Channel Knowledge About Coronavirus and Travel for All fanpage. Please respectfully welcome everyone. Following is the general news related to the world and events COVID-19 as follows. 1. American news. Thousands poured onto streets in demonstrations. While some were peaceful, others ended in chaos and devastation. Some people launched fireworks and threw bottles at the officers. Others torched buildings, burned police cars and looted stores. Police responded with rubber bullets, tear gas and arrests. Mayors from at least 25 cities ordered people off the streets. Some states called in National Guard soldiers by the hundreds to respond to the unrest. President Donald Trump remains intent on holding an Independence Day celebration in Washington, D.C. this year. The city's leaders and Democratic lawmakers aren't so sure. 2. Update on the situation of COVID-19 in the world. Updated situation of coronavirus on May 31. Within the past 24 hours, Brazil is the country with the highest number of daily cases in the world, with more than 30,000 cases. Followed by the U.S., with more than 22,000 cases, and Russia, with nearly 9,000 cases. As of 7 a.m. this morning, May 31, the world has recorded more than 6.1 million people infected from COVID-19. In particular, 370,497 people have died and more than 2.7 million have recovered, according to global statistics site Worldometer. The COVID-19 pandemic occurred in 13 countries and territories around the world after it broke out in China's Wuhan city in December 2019. By now, most states in the U.S. have reopened under different steps. Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that New York City would resume operations on June 8, the first step towards ending the blockade that had lasted since late March. The highest number of deaths in the past 24 hours was still in the U.S., with 989 cases, followed by Brazil, 890 cases, Mexico, 371 cases, the U.K., 215 cases, and India, 205 cases. 3. Brazilian news. Brazil is the most heavily affected country in Latin America and is the second largest outbreak in the world, with a total of 498,440 cases and 28,834 deaths, up 30,102 and 1,180 cases, respectively. The Brazilian Ministry of Health said there was no way to predict when the epidemic would peak. While experts predict the number of COVID-19 cases in Brazil may be 15 times higher than the statistics, because the tests of Latin American countries are very limited. Despite warnings that the country has not been through a pandemic yet, the president of the country constantly moves against the social gap. President Jair Bolsonaro, on May 28 local time, has called for the opening of the economy, calling for businesses to reopen. 4. Russian news. Russia is the third largest outbreak in the world. Over the past 24 hours, the country recorded 8,952 new infections, bringing the total to 396,575 cases, including 4,551 deaths, increasing 181 cases. Starting June 1 tomorrow, the people of Moscow, including seniors over 65 and chronically ill citizens, can leave their homes to go for a walk and play sports. Car dealerships and shops, laundry shops, shoe repair shops, etc. are also reopened from June 1, but must ensure conditions of social spacing and epidemiological hygiene. 5. Indian news. India recorded 8,336 cases of SARS-CoV-2 virus on May 30, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 181,827 people, of which the number of deaths reached 5,185 after recording another 205 cases. It is expected that India's Phase 4 national blockade will end on May 31, and the Indian Ministry of Homeland Security will soon publish revised guidelines on the continued application of the blockade. Section 5. For the next 2 weeks. During this period, Indian authorities will focus on prevention in 13 major cities, accounting for 70% of the total number of cases nationwide. Meanwhile, some states, including the capital Delhi, have been allowed to resume private travel, limited public transport, and reopen shops, except in shopping malls and shopping complexes, procurement, and industrial areas. In recent years, the Indian government has resumed domestic flights and operated thousands of special trains to bring migrant workers back to their home countries. 6. Vietnam news. Vietnam has had 45 days without new cases in the community according to an update from the Ministry of Health. Up to May 31, Vietnam did not register any new cases. The total number of COVID-19 positive cases was 328. 7. News of Afghanistan. The Afghan Ministry of Public Health recorded 866 infections in the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 14,525. Meanwhile, the number of cases in Pakistan has reached 66,457 cases after recording 2,429 cases on May 30. The number of deaths in the country is 1,395 cases now. 8. News of Ukraine. According to an update of the Ukraine Ministry of Health, Ukraine recorded 393 positive cases with COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of infections in the country to 23,204 people. In the past 24 hours, the country has 17 deaths, bringing the death toll to 696, and the total number of patients recovered from hospital was 9,311. Currently 16,032 patients in Ukraine are treated at home on self-isolation. 7,172 are treated in hospitals. The number of critically ill patients using a ventilator was 273. 9. Canada news. The tourist season in Canada has subsided when Ottawa decided to extend a ban on large yachts operating in Canadian waters until the end of October 2020 as part of efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19. Transport Minister Mark Garneau said passenger ships with more than 100 people overnight, including guests and crew, were not allowed to operate in Canadian waters until at least October 31. In mid-March 2020, Canada issued a ban until July 2020 for ships carrying more than 500 passengers entering Canadian waters. From now until October 31, ships with more than 12 guests cannot enter the Arctic region. The Government of Canada is concerned that the ship could spread the COVID-19 epidemic to communities in remote and isolated areas in the north. Secretary Garneau acknowledged that extending the ban would create a major economic challenge for Canada's tourism industry, but he also emphasized that to keep Canadians and employees working in the transport sector safe was his top priority during the COVID-19 pandemic. 10. Italian news. The Italian Civil Protection Agency on May 30 announced that it had recorded an additional 416 cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 232,664 cases. In particular, the number of deaths is 33,340 cases, increased by 111 cases. A directive in the Italian government decree issued on May 30 states that from June 3, citizens of Schengen and UK countries to Italy will not be required to be separated for 14 days. This rule also applies to citizens of European countries outside of Schengen since June 15. Italy's iconic Pisa Leaning Tower has begun to open for visitors again from yesterday 30 May. 11. French news. France currently records a total of 186,625 cases, including 28,771 deaths. Beginning June 2, France will begin Phase 2 of the nationwide blockade of blockade. Accordingly, bars, restaurants and museums next week. In Paris, the famous galleries, Lafayette parks and department stores have reopened. 12. Korean news. Statistics from the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, KCVC, on May 30 show that the total number of SARS-CoV-2 infections in the country increased 39 to 11,441. The good news is that there were no more deaths, while an additional 35 COVID-19 patients in South Korea recovered, bringing the total number of cured cases to 10,398. Korea has relaxed the measure of social disengagement and moved to quarantine in daily life, starting on May 6. However, shortly thereafter the health agency of the country detected a number of highly infectious outbreaks in the Seoul metropolitan area and its vicinity, which accounts for nearly 50% of the Korean population. On May 28, the South Korean government announced the reimposition of some social distress measures to prevent the epidemic from continuing to spread. 13. Egyptian news. On May 30, Egypt announced it had recorded 1,367 cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases in the North African nation to 23,449. In the past few days, the number of COVID-19 cases in Egypt has increased steadily, and May 30 is considered to be the day with the highest number of recorded cases since the discovery of the first case in Egypt on 14 February so far. The total number of patients killed by COVID-19 reached 913, following the record of 34 deaths on May 30. Although Egypt is gradually reopening its commercial activities, authorities continue to apply a number of measures, including the extension of the curfew at night for an additional 2 weeks starting from May 30 to curb the spread of COVID-19. 14. South Africa news. The number of cases of COVID-19 in South Africa exceeds 30,000. The South African Ministry of Health on May 30 announced that it had recorded 1,727 cases of COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of COVID-19 cases to 30,967, including 643 deaths. According to Health Minister Zwelin Kais, in the past 24 hours, South Africa has conducted COVID-19 tests for 21,708 people, bringing the total number of people tested in the country to 701,883 cases. Meanwhile, to date, South Africa has recorded a total of 15,093 cases of COVID-19 from the disease. South Africa has turned to the 64th day of a nationwide blockade order due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the plan, starting from June 1, the country will relax the blockade order from level 4 to level 3 to gradually restore the operation of some key economic sectors. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Knowledge of coronavirus, channel and travel for all fanpage respectfully, and see you in the next video.